Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology. What's that? That's the study of books and reading and notebooks and writing mixed with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. Here, you'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how they can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebooking prompts around particular themes, and you'll even hear from authors and special guests who can fuel our reading and writing hearts and help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, your host and your friendly bookologist, here with another episode on how reading and writing can make life better. Today, we're talking about a typical problem that most of us readers have, and that's what to do with all of our books. Now, if you're listening to this episode in real time, then it is the end of August. And for us, at least in upstate New York, this is our back to school time. I know some of you have already gone back to school in other parts of the United States, but here, the coming of Labor Day means that summer is coming to an end, fall season is starting, and we are all heading back to school. As an educator, I really feel into that calendar because my brand new academic year is starting literally right now. Now, for me, when it comes to be this time of year, I tend to get in an organizing kind of mood. I know the rest of the world talks about spring cleaning. I do not. In the spring and the summer, I'm getting out of my house. It really doesn't matter what my closets look like. But in the fall, when we are gearing up for cooler weather and we know we're going to spend more time inside rather than outside, well, that's when I get a little bit more concerned on the state of my home. That's when all of the organizing bells go off, and I try to clean up and minimize and clear the clutter so that the time spent indoors feels really good. Now, if you are like me, you fell down the Marie Kondo rabbit hole a couple of years ago, right? This was this magical tidying up formula. Marie Kondo just transformed households around the world by asking a single question: does it spark joy? That was how she organized. Rather than looking at our living spaces with negativity or unhappiness and focusing on what we need to get out or what we need to remove, she focused on what we love, what we want, what we need to live the kind of life we envision for ourselves, starting with joy. I loved that formula. Years ago, I went through literally with my husband our entire house, every single room, including the kids' room, and we went through those principles. Now, we didn't always hold every item up and ask if it sparked joy, but we did go through everything by putting it all in the middle of the room and sorting through it piece by piece by piece. I got rid of a lot of stuff: clothes, kitchen supplies, shoes, towels, so many duplicates of so many things I didn't need. And I even weeded through some of the keepsake items that I love to hold on to. But the one thing I drew a hard line at weeding was, of course, my books. No, I am not weeding my books, right? I am a book collector. We are book collectors. I love books on bookshelves, books in baskets in the rooms of my home. I love book stacks when they're on my desk and we're on the counter. I love books besides my bed. When I run out of room for more books, I just go to all the extra bookshelves I have in my basement and one in my closet, or even the bins of books that are tucked away. I have so many books that I was told if we ever move again, I have to carry all those books myself. And you know what? I am okay with that. But I also know that just like having a too big TBR can clutter our reading life, having a book collection that is so overflowing with books can have reading side effects. The visual clutter can cause overwhelm for some of us, right? Think about the books on our bookshelves that are first stacked the right way, and then maybe we have a second row stacked, and then maybe we have some books tipped over on the side and stacked on top of those, right? That visual clutter can be overwhelming. Those books are likely unorganized and can be hard to find, making deciding what to read next off of your bookshelf even more challenging. But for me, the thing that always gets me every time and sends me back to my bookshelf to organize every time it gets out of control, it's the idea that there are so many books sitting there on the shelf, waiting patiently to be read, but they might not be. Oh, it just saddens my reading heart, right? All of those books that I have just stuffed into the bookshelves, they might be read, but they might not. They might be read by me, they might not. They could be read by others, but they might not because they're here. So I like to look at weeding our bookshelves or minimizing our bookshelves, Marie Kondoing our bookshelves. I like to think that it opens up new space for us to welcome new books into our lives. Books that are likely more relevant and suited for the season we are currently in, not when we originally purchased the book and stuffed them on our shelves. So, I am right now, literally in the week that I am recording this episode, going through my own set of bookshelves yet again. I'm taking those condo principles that I used before. I am working through them again in my multiple bookshelves so that I can intentionally curate a collection that feels really good moving into fall and looks really good moving into fall too. And I thought, if you're anything like me, and I know many of you are because you're here listening, maybe that's something that you want to do in this particular season too. So let's get right to it. What is my process for minimizing my bookshelves without hurting my reading heart and giving all my books away? Number one is know your why. Before you even get started and you stand in front of your bookshelf and you have all these big plans to organize and weed, I want you to think why you are choosing to do it in the first place. Right? So knowing that why, just like in other aspects of our lives, it gives us purpose. It gives us the energy that we will need to tackle this particular project by knowing the important meaning behind it. So say your why and say it out loud. Right? Are you sorting through your bookshelf so that you can get a cleaner and refreshed look going into the season? Are you cleaning your bookshelf so that you can have additional space for new titles and new genres that you've been dying to read? Or are you sorting through your bookshelf because you want a chance to sift through your reading life that you've had in the past so that you can plan for what you want it to look like in the future? Whatever that reason is, I want you to define your why. I want you to say it out loud, maybe even write it on a sticky note and stick it right to the top of the bookshelf and keep it close by throughout the process. Because the process I'm about to share with you, Marie Kondo style, it takes a little bit. You've got to want to do this, you've got to be in it, but I know from experience, this is the only way that I truly minimize my bookshelf in a way that feels really good. I can't just stand in front of my bookshelf and say, what books do I want to keep? Which books do I want to donate? That just doesn't work for me. And chances are it doesn't work for you either. So knowing your why and holding it close gives you the energy you need to do this next step. Are you ready? The next step is to remove and sort every single book on your bookshelf. You are literally going to pull each and every book off of the shelf so that you can hold each one, see each one, touch each one. right? This contact on the book is so important. I promise you, quickly glancing at the titles on your shelf is not going to do it. You need to pick up each one, and rather than asking yourself, does this spark joy? I want you to pick up each book and I want you to sort them into two piles in the room you're in. Literally put one pile on one side of the room and the other pile on the other. And yes, I know these piles can get quite big depending on the size of your bookshelf, but do it. Pile 1, books you've read. Pile 2, books you haven't read yet. Right? And now the best part is all of your books are off the shelf and you can go ahead and give it a good dusting, which is something that's really, really hard to do when the bookshelves are filled. So now you have two piles of books in your room, read and not read yet. I want you to go to the read pile first. Just leave the not yet read books over to the side. Go to the stack or the stacks or the piles of books that you have already read. Pick a book up. Say the title, say the author out loud, and literally open it up and fan the pages. I know it might seem weird, but this is Kondo style. Saying that title out loud will jog your memory of the book, and fanning the pages will highlight any of those dog-eared passages if you do that sort of thing. It'll reveal any bookmarks, any sticky notes, any annotation, all signs that you loved the book. Now, if this process does not jog your memory of the book, you don't remember reading it, you don't remember picking it up, there's no evidence that you read it in the book, but you know you've read it, that's a sure sign that this might be a book you let go. Now, at this point, you're picking up each book, saying the title, saying the author, fanning the pages, getting that instant hit of emotion. You have to make a decision. Am I going to keep it or am I going to donate it? So if this is a book that you loved, you remembered it, and you want to keep it, ask why. Why? If you have a compelling reason to keep that book on your shelf that is waiting patiently for another reader that might never come to it, then keep it. You have a compelling reason to keep it. You loved it. You want to revisit it. It had an impact on you. It represented an important time of your life. Keep it on the shelf. But if you don't really have a compelling reason why you want to keep it, set it aside. That way you can pay it forward to the next reader who might love and appreciate it better than you. So your job right now in this red pile is to divide that books I've read pile into two new piles, books to keep and books to share. Okay, books to keep and books to share. Don't put them back on the shelf yet. Just don't do it yet. Keep that one big pile separated into two piles on that one side of the room. Then go to the other side of the room. Go to those books that you didn't read yet on the other side of the room, and it's time to work with those. Just like we did with the books we've already read, I want you to pick up each book, say the title, say the author aloud. Then ask yourself, how does this feel? Does this book register in your memory at all? Do you remember picking it up and putting it on your shelf in the first place? Do you remember why? Do you remember if it was a gift or if you bought it for yourself? Does it tug at your reading heart in any way? Or do you feel nothing? You don't remember it. You don't remember how it got here. It doesn't feel like something that you want to read right now. I just want you to go with your gut here. Go with your gut and decide, which one do I still want to keep? And which one do I think is just not for me anymore? And I want to donate, right? So remember when and why you purchased the book. See if those reasons are still relevant. See if someone recommended it to you and why they thought you might enjoy it. If you can answer those questions quickly and you're still interested, keep the book. But if you don't remember, there is no tug at all, feel free to pass it forward to another reader. You kind of owe it to the book not to let it sit there instead of being loved in someone's hands who is reading it. Okay, so I want you to divide that pile into books I'm going to keep and books I'm going to share, right? So we've got our books organized now into four piles. Keep and share on the books I've read, and keep and share on the books that we haven't read. Now, now it's time to reorganize. Ooh, this is the fun part. Actually, before you reorganize, that's when you might dust. Actually, but it's time to organize. Now, organization of bookshelves is a very personal process, and people are very much connected to the way those books end up on their shelves. And you get to choose. There is no one right way to put the books on your shelf, and you can change your organization whenever the heck you want. It should be based on you, your personality as a reader, and what you actually want your bookshelf to look like and how easily accessible you want those books. So go in deep to your personality and ask yourself, gut reaction, how do I want to organize my books? Do I want to shelve them by reading status? Shelves for books I've read, shelves for books I haven't read yet. Do I want to arrange them alphabetically by the author's last name? Do I want to arrange them by category based on genre or format? Do I want to sort them by hardcover or paperback? Do I want to cluster those books based on my mood for reading? Because I know mood reading is my thing. Or do I want to visually display them by an outside characteristic, like their color, their size, or their shape? Do I want particular shelves that celebrate my favorite books or books that have mattered to me over the years? There is no one right way, but I want you to choose an organization method and then take the keep books from your read side of the room and your keep books from the not yet read side of the room. And I want you to organize them on your bookshelf. Now, that may take a little bit of time, and it may be something that as you get started, you realize you switch and change gears in the middle, and that's absolutely okay. Just keep putting them on there and keep rearranging them until you're happy. Now, I will say that this happiness might not come in this single sitting. I know when I got to this point, I was a little tired and I thought I had big goals on how I wanted them organized, but turns out in the moment, I just wanted them back on the darn shelf and off of my floor. So I just put them all back on. And then I came back later and I rearranged them in a more pleasing format to me. That, though, does have its drawbacks because you often have to take the books all off the shelf again and then put them back on in the new order. But that choice is totally yours. So let's say that you've taken both of those keep piles and they are arranged exactly as you wish on your bookshelf. The next step is to take those share books on both sides of the room, books that you've read that you're wanting to part with, and books that you haven't read that are no longer serving you. You're going to put those together in one pile and you're going to get them into the hands of the next reader. Now, how you do that is up to you. You could donate adult books to your local library. I'm sure you could donate children's literature to your local library as well, but you could also donate any of those children's books to your local neighborhood school. You could have fun and go on a little road trip and add a few books to every free little library in your neighborhood. You can go on to the free little library website or even download the app to figure out where the free little libraries are around you. You could also start your own. I bet you have enough books to donate where you could start your own little free library right in your front yard. Now, you also could gift books away. Look at the books and decide who might need or want them next. Pass them forward to family members, pass them forward to friends or to coworkers, and better yet, stick a little handwritten recommendation on a sticky note or a beautiful note card, pop it in the book, and hand it forward. Now, you also could declare yourself a book fairy, and you could leave a book in a random place for the next reader to find. There is a book fairy organization that is dedicated to doing just that all over the world. So you're welcome to join in that initiative, and I'll put the link to it in the show notes. Or you could just be your own book fairy and write a note to a stranger and leave that book wherever you want it to be. How would that feel? Right? Remember when you stood in front of your bookshelf and you set an intention for why you wanted to do this? At this point in the process, it feels really, really, really good to know that not only does your bookshelf look better and is more organized so that you can get to the books you want to, but you now have books to pay forward to the next reader. And that makes readers like us feel really, really good. So looking at your big giant bookshelf with all of those books might not feel so daunting if you know how good it's going to feel at the end. Because weeding your books or culling your book collection, it's a necessary stage of the reading life, right? Sharing books that no longer serve us or we don't need to keep copies of helps us better appreciate those books that do make the cut, those books that stay with us forever, and it helps us feel really good about paying them forward to the next reader. Now, if you want a printed reminder of what this whole process looked like, I got your back. I created an infographic that starts at the top and says, "Have I read this book?" As you hold it in your hand and say the author's name and title and you fan the pages. And if you say yes, or if you say no, it will start you down the path of a decision tree. Okay, so have I read this book? Yes. Do I have a compelling reason to keep it? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, then keep it. Right? But if you say no in any of those questions, it will lead you down a different part of the tree. So, have I read the book? No. Okay. Do I remember why I purchased it? Nope. All right. Does it still look interesting? Yeah. Okay, then keep it. If you said no, gift it to the next reader. So it's just a fun decision tree infographic for the reader's dilemma of what we do with all our books when we want our bookshelf to look a little bit cleaner. So I hope that gives you a little bit of energy for this back to school. Let's get organized. We're going to have a really wonderful fall and winter reading life. And so we've got to prepare for it kind of state of mind. And I would love to know what you think of this episode and what your book reading, book organization, book minimization, right? Whatever you want to call it. What's your process like? Do you have any tips for me? Do you have any tips for other readers that I could share on future episodes of the podcast? I would love to hear them. Now, I've got a big wall to ceiling bookshelf in my living room that I'm doing this process with. I also have bookshelves in my basement to do this process with. I should probably get my book bins out and do the same thing. But you know what I have just started? In my bedroom, I have this amazingly giant walk-in closet. You walk in and you literally could take a left and then take another left. It's a very odd shaped closet, but it is big and it is floor to ceiling shelves. Now, I have filled those shelves with varying things over the years. Kids' clothes, kids' mementos, whole bunches of shoes. And now, what do you think's there to help with the overflow? You guessed it, books. So I will be reorganizing all of the books in my house and likely carving a new bookshelf out of my closet space. So I need all the tips I can get. And as I get this process done, I promise I will put pictures in social media and come back and update the show notes for this episode as well. So send me all the things. You know where to find me. Head online to elitelife.com and comment on the show notes for this episode. Head to your favorite social media platform and comment on the post for this episode. You can find me inside my private Facebook group for this podcast, Get Literate. I would love to see pictures of what you're doing there. And as always, you can send me an email, stephanieaffinito@gmail.com, or my favorite, which is just push that audio message button in your favorite podcast platform and let me hear your voice and hear your suggestions. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, everyone. Here is to cleaning out our bookshelves so that we're gearing up for a fall and winter season of beautiful reading. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. Learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow, and it builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.